But like I said, he talked about Snively as the forgotten Sonic villain. At the end of that video, he talked about a few other things that the comic notoriously, if not negatively, was known for doing. And one of the things that he popped up was the whole Bunnie sleeping, if you will, with Sonic, or Evil Sonic, as we would find out later on in issue 150. And when he showed this, along with the other things that were pretty much negative, if you will, pretty much left a bad taste in people's mouth, throughout the comics run, even through its various spin-offs, like with the whole Holocaust thing in Knuckles the Echidna, to me that gave me an idea of what he plans to probably talk about in the near future. Now, when he brought up the whole Bunnie, Evil Sonic situation, it got my wheels, turning again. And I know a lot of us have talked about it, previously, including myself. But thankfully, we haven't talked about it, we haven't talked about it nauseatingly to death. We haven't talked about it nauseatingly to death like we have, like, let's say, the Mecha Sally arc, which there's still a lot to talk about that, believe me. And I think that's another thing he plans to talk about in the future. But when it comes to the whole Bunnie situation, we have to remember that mentally and emotionally she wasn't in the right place at that time, because she thought that Antoine had broken up with her. But as we would later find out, that wasn't the case, because what we would find out is that the Antoine that had broken up with her was Antoine's doppelganger from what would be later known as Moebius, or Anti-Mobius. That being Anti-Antoine, Evil Antoine, or as he would be later known as Patch. And, we have to remember that he's the reason she ended up in this state of emotion and mentality of, trying to find someone to love her again. And when this moment happened, it really got a lot of people talking, because in storyline, she pretty much, believed that it was Sonic, not knowing it was Evil Sonic, but she pretty much believed that this was the Sonic, the one she was friends with, that was now finally finding, some kind of attraction in her and wanting to be with her, not realizing that something was up, especially after the little, I guess you could say, blow off that he did towards Tails, when Tails caught them in the act. And, him basically brushing it off, blowing it off, and her asking him, are you okay and everything? That? It's like, you think in story she would, realize, hey, something's not right here. It's like, you would never act like that towards Tails, ever. You're like, you would never really do that. It's like, it's like you think it would click in her mind that she was making out with an imposter. But again, we have to remember, mentally and emotionally, she wasn't in the right frame of mind, because of the fact of what happened, which again leads us to this moment. Now, was it smart, if you will, for Ken Penders to put this moment in there, or at least even hint, to the viewers, to the readers later on, that what we all suspected was indeed what happened? Was it smart of him to do that? No. But he did it because, again, I'm not trying to give the guy any credit, but he did it because of the fact that, storyline-wise, Bunnie Rabbit was mentally and emotionally not in her right frame of mind. She was not there, because of what happened. And this opportunity, whether or not she started to suspect anything or not, which apparently she didn't, had opened up for her, and she was going to take advantage of it. So, again, was it right for him to do what he did? No. Storyline-wise, no, it wasn't right for him to, do what he did or back it up in some capacity online, towards the fans. But still, from a writer's perspective, and again, I'm not trying to defend him, but from a storyline perspective, he was basically basing it on, continuity-wise, Bunnie's mental and emotional state that she was in. He even said that in his defense, in his own words, he even said that Evil Sonic, unbeknownst to Bunnie, this being Evil Sonic, was taking advantage of that moment. that moment of weakness, that moment of mental and emotional disruption. Basically taking advantage of the fact that she was desperate for love again and not realizing that, hey, Sonic's all of a sudden coming on to me after what's happened with him and Sally. It's like, something's not right here, or even basically, I should say, like I said, getting suspicious after blowing off tails after being caught. Basically Ken, in his own words, said it best. He was that evil Antoine evil Sonic, disguised as Sonic, or posing as Sonic, was taking advantage of the situation. That's all he was doing, taking advantage of the situation. And again, artistically and writing-wise, was it the best decision to make to have this happen? No, it wasn't. It wasn't the best decision. It never will be the best decision to do that, because even in an all-ages comic, despite the fact that one of your, plans, in my opinion, was to age the comic up with the readers, it's not the best decision to allude to something like that. Because even before, because this did take place, let's not forget, this is issue 150. This is years before Twitter came around. This is years before Twitter. I think Twitter may have been in the development stage or in the infantile stages, if you will. Excuse me. But this is years before social media would become what it is. Twitter would become what it is. Facebook would become what it is. Tumblr, and so on. This is years before this. But even back then, I can guarantee you a lot of fans saw this, and they basically came up to the same conclusion of, did Ken, or the same conclusion, and started wondering and asking the same question of, did Penders just write in a scenario where evil Sonic, posing as Sonic, pretty much sexually took advantage of Bunnie without her knowing it? And she just went along with it because emotionally and mentally, she's not right, and she's not right, and she's trying to look for love. Did he do that? You can't tell me they weren't thinking that upon foreseeing this, because they did. Because they did. I mean, even when I first read it, I was surprised. It's like, whoa, what is this? I'm thinking, what's going on here? And again, I was like, as Cyberpunk Jordan put it, sorry, I was trying to think about what I was going to say. I was like a lot of readers. I was not aware that the Sonic we were seeing was evil Sonic until the very end. But again, from a storyline perspective, I guarantee you, whether we knew it was evil Sonic or not at that time, which again we didn't towards the end, that's a moment that surprised us, and it's a moment that made us all wonder, like, what the heck is going on? Like, even if we didn't know this was an imposter and thought it was Sonic, we're thinking, what is Ken Penders doing? Why is he writing Sonic like this? Why would Sega allow him to do this? Only to find out the truth later on, from a storyline perspective. And my chin just hit the mic there. I do apologize. But yeah, honestly, when you look back at this, I do agree it wasn't the best idea to go with. It wasn't the best idea to write into an all-ages comic, despite the fact you're trying to grow the comic up with your audience. It wasn't the best idea. But Ken, in his own words of his own defense, and look, I'm not trying to defend the guy, but I see where he's coming from. Basically, from a storyline context, he was basically having evil Sonic take advantage of Bunnie's emotional and mental state, because you got to remember, at that point, she still wasn't over Antoine basically dumping her, or who she thought was Antoine dumping her, because, she wasn't over that. She wasn't over that, and it made her vulnerable to any male, person that found interest in her. I mean, heck, I'll say it like this. If Ken Penders wanted to, he could have easily, if he wanted to, put Tails into this situation. That's no joke. He's controversial and everything, and he could have done that. He's controversial in some of his decisions. He could have done that. I mean, let's not forget, This is a guy that one of his original storyline ideas was to have Joffrey St. John take Sally's virginity in an all ages comic, and thus, basically take Sally's virginity in an all ages comic, which again I think was his way of trying to grow the comic up along with the audience. So I would not put it past him that, hey, if he wanted to, he could have switched, evil Sonic out with evil Tails, or heck, if he wanted to, he could have had some kind of love potion situation, happen to where everybody that got affected by it, would do the dirty, if you will, and we'd see Tails, laying next to Bunnie and everything with an indication of, oh my God, did that happen? So I wouldn't put it past him to want to do that kind of stuff. So, I wouldn't put it past him because of the fact that, hey, he likes controversy. He likes getting people talking. He's trying to age up a comic that's all ages. I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't. Which, again, is why I wouldn't put it, which is why I don't put it past him for doing, which is why I don't put it past him to have made the decision to go with what he did. But again, in his own defense, and I'm not trying to defend him, but he does have somewhat of a point. Storyline-wise, you have evil Sonic posing as Sonic, taking advantage of Bunnie's, friendship, taking advantage of her, vulnerability mentally and emotionally to get to this point. So, yeah, looking back on it, again, I don't agree with it being added in. I really don't. I don't really agree with it, but again, I'm not trying to defend Penders or anything. I'm not trying to do that. But, because he kind of defends it himself. But I do get from a storyline perspective, as to why he did it. Because storyline-wise, Bunnie emotionally and mentally was not in the right place. And for someone like Evil Sonic, who would later become known as Scourge, it made her easy to take advantage of. It made her easy to manipulate. So, yeah, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with him doing it. I don't. But storyline-wise, I get why he did it. Unfortunately. I do. But let me know what your thoughts are. What were your thoughts on that moment when you first originally saw it? Do you think Penders did it mainly not just for controversy and getting people talking and obviously not right for doing it, but do you think he mostly did it from a storyline continuity perspective because of the emotionally and mentally Bunnie was in? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. I'll talk to y'all later.